A beam of light. 2 slits. A screen. That's all it took to fracture our understanding of reality, and whisper the name of God. No thunder cracked the sky. No angels descended. Yet in that simple laboratory setup, something impossible happened, something that has haunted physicists, mystics, and seekers of truth for over 100 years. Particles of light, photons, behaved not as things, but as possibilities. As if they were conscious. As if they knew they were being watched. Pause for a moment. Let that sink in. Reality changed, depending on whether or not it was being observed. This wasn't poetry. This wasn't philosophy. This was cold, repeatable science. And yet, the implications of this experiment echo with the same thunder found in ancient temples, where sages whispered that the universe is Maya, an illusion shaped by the mind. Could it be that science, at its most advanced edge, has stumbled upon what the mystics have always known? Could a photon, a flicker of light, hold within it the same essence described in the Upanishads, the Tao Te Ching, or the Hermetic Scrolls? In this video, we will journey through time and mind, from ancient revelations to modern laboratories, to explore a truth so strange, so profound, it might just reveal the nature of God itself. We'll begin with a forgotten wisdom buried in ancient texts. Then we'll descend into the quantum world, where reality flickers and time folds. And finally, we'll return to you, your mind, your perception, your role in this vast mystery. Because the question isn't just what is God. The question is, what are you, when no one is looking? Long before electrons danced in cloud chambers and light bent around slits in sterile labs, ancient civilizations peered into the fabric of reality through meditation, ritual, and myth. What they discovered, without instruments, equations, or data, was startlingly close to what modern physics now suggests. In the ancient Indian Upanishads, a phrase repeats like a mantra echoing through time. Tat Tvam Asi, thou art that. It declares that the essence of the individual is identical to the essence of the universe. The self and the cosmos are not separate. The observer and the observed are one. The sages of the East weren't guessing. They were experiencing something, through altered states of consciousness, deep silence, and transcendental insight. In these sacred moments, the boundaries between subject and object dissolved. Reality responded to perception. Sound familiar? Now leap across the world to the Hermetic philosophers of ancient Egypt. The Emerald Tablet, a foundational mystical text, proclaims, "As above, so below. As within, so without." This isn't just poetic symmetry. It points to a reflective universe, where the inner world mirrors the outer, and vice versa. Consciousness, in this view, isn't inside you, it is you. And it shapes what you call reality. Even Plato, in the allegory of the cave, speaks to this hidden layer of existence. He describes prisoners seeing only shadows, mistaking illusions for truth, until one escapes and sees the real world beyond. The cave is our sensory reality. The light beyond it, is something deeper. Now, imagine how these ancient insights must have sounded to modern scientists, used to a mechanical, indifferent universe. For centuries, the dominant worldview was materialist, everything is matter, measurable, predictable. The universe was a machine, and consciousness was just a side effect, an accidental spark in a cold, dead cosmos. But then, something shattered that illusion. In the early 20th century, as quantum physics emerged, particles refused to obey. The closer scientists looked, the stranger things became. Solid matter dissolved into vibrations. Location and momentum danced like ghosts, never fully caught, never fully known. And, most disturbingly, the act of observation seemed to change the outcome. It was as if the universe wasn't a static object to be studied, but a living mirror, reflecting awareness back at itself. Suddenly, the age-old claims of mystics didn't sound so mystical. They sounded plausible. Consider this. The yogi in the Himalayas says, "All is one. You are the universe. The quantum physicist in his lab says, particles don't exist in definite states until observed. Two different languages. One underlying message. Reality responds to consciousness. The implications are staggering. If consciousness is not just an emergent property, but a foundational element of reality, then perhaps God isn't a bearded ruler in the sky, but the very awareness through which the universe knows itself. Could it be, then, that the divine is not a distant creator, but the observer itself? Not a watcher, but watching. Not a form, but formless perception. And perhaps, in those ancient whispers and modern equations, we are finally beginning to understand. God is not somewhere else. God is what happens when you look. Let us now enter the laboratory. The year is 1801. Thomas Young, an English polymath, sets up a simple apparatus to test the nature of light. He shines a beam of light through two narrow slits and observes the result on a screen. What he sees is not two bright spots, what you'd expect if light were made of particles, but a complex pattern of light in dark bands. This, he concludes, is interference. A wave behavior. Light, it seems, behaves like a ripple, like water. It spreads out, splits, collides with itself. That was astonishing enough at the time. But the real mystery wouldn't emerge until more than a century later. Fast forward to the early 20th century. Scientists now have the technology to fire individual photons, tiny, indivisible packets of light, one at a time, through the same double slit. Now listen carefully. Even when fired one by one, these photons still produce an interference pattern, as if they are somehow interfering with themselves. Pause. Reflect. A single particle goes through both slits. Interferes with itself. How can a particle be in two places at once? It's as if the photon exists not as a thing, but as a cloud of probability, a shimmering field of potential, until something forces it to choose. And what forces it to choose, is observation. Install a detector to measure which slit the photon actually goes through, and the entire interference pattern vanishes. The photon decides on a single path. It collapses into a point. The wave becomes a particle. The infinite becomes finite. Reality changes, simply because it is being watched. Now ask yourself. What is doing the watching? A machine? An eye? A mind? Here lies the riddle. It doesn't seem to matter whether the detector is conscious. What matters is that information becomes available. The potential for knowledge collapses the wave of possibilities into one concrete fact. It's as though the universe, knowing it can now be known, crystallizes. Physicist John Wheeler would later ask, does the universe exist if we do not observe it? He proposed the idea of a participatory universe, one in which reality is not fixed and external, but fluid and responsive. A universe where the observer is not separate from the observed, but entangled with it. This is not philosophy. This is quantum mechanics. And here is the paradox. The world appears objective, stable, out there, indifferent. But on the smallest scales, it behaves like a dream, one that changes when you look too closely. One that seems to need a looker in order to form at all. Mystics have long said, "You are the dreamer dreaming the world." Quantum physics now whispers. Reality behaves differently, when you're watching. If observation shapes outcome, if awareness collapses infinite possibilities into singular events, then what is observation? And who, or what, is doing it? Is it possible, that the act of observation is divine? That God is not an entity outside the system, but the very process by which form emerges from the formless? Not a being, but being itself. Not a creator in time, but the timeless act of creation. And in every moment, you are participating in it, unknowingly wielding the same force that brings worlds into being, awareness. Imagine walking into a room filled with mirrors. But there's a strange rule, the reflections do not appear unless you expect them to. You stand in front of one, blank. But the moment you intend to see yourself, the image emerges. Not before. Not after. This is not a fantasy. This is quantum reality. At the core of the double-slit experiment lies an uncomfortable truth: the universe behaves as if it is aware. Not in a sentimental, anthropomorphic way, but in a way that is precise, eerie, and undeniable. It waits. It listens. It chooses. And what it responds to, is you. Let us dive deeper. The collapse of the quantum wave function is one of the most debated concepts in all of physics. The wave function is a mathematical expression of all the possible states a particle could be in. But once observed, that cloud of potential snaps into a single state, a fact. The process of observation appears to create reality. And here's where things get truly strange. Some interpretations of quantum mechanics, such as the von Neumann-Wigner interpretation, suggest that consciousness itself is what causes the collapse. That it is not the measuring device, not the data, but the mind, the conscious observer, that turns potential into actuality. In this view, consciousness is not produced by the brain. Rather, the brain is a receiver, a translator, of a deeper field of mind, much like a radio picks up invisible frequencies. Now bring to mind the words of the 13th century mystic Rumi. You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop. This is not metaphor. This may be literal. What if your consciousness is not in your body, but the other way around? What if the universe is not made of matter, but of mind? Let's step back even further. Quantum entanglement shows us that particles can become mysteriously linked, so that the state of one instantly determines the state of another, no matter the distance. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. But what does it mean? It means there may be no true separation. Not between particles. Not between minds. Not between you and what you see. This echoes ancient teachings. In Advaita Vedanta, all is Brahman. In Buddhism, form is emptiness, emptiness is form. In Kabbalah, Ein Sof, the infinite, manifests through the Sphirot, shaping reality with intention. So what does this mean for our question? What is God? Perhaps God is not a noun, but a verb. Not a being, but BNG, the sacred process of observation, reflection, and collapse. The breath of awareness moving through the formless, bringing cosmos from chaos, shape from shadow. When you observe, when you attend, when you bring presence to the moment, you are participating in this divine unfolding. The mystics called it awakening. The physicists called it measurement. But maybe, they are the same thing. Could it be that the ancient idea of logos, the divine word, the ordering principle, is the act of attention itself? That to see is to speak the world into form. You don't just live in the universe. You co-create it. And every moment of genuine awareness is a prayer, a ripple, a spark of the divine. You might be wondering. This is fascinating, but what do I do with it? If reality responds to observation, if awareness shapes the world, then your greatest spiritual tool is not belief, ritual, or doctrine. It is your attention. And not just any attention, conscious, deliberate, reverent attention. You are not just a witness to the universe. You are a mirror in which the universe sees itself. And the clearer your mirror, the more radiant the reflection becomes. So how do we polish this mirror? How do we align ourselves with this sacred force of awareness that some call consciousness, others call source, and still others call God? Here are 3 practices, simple, ancient, yet profoundly transformative. 1. The sacred pause, return to the now. In a world built to scatter your mind across 1,000 distractions, the act of simply being present is revolutionary. Begin with this practice. Sit in silence. Focus on your breath, not to control it, but to witness it. Feel the sensations in your body. Hear the sounds around you. Don't label. Don't judge. Just observe. This is not passive. It is sacred observation. In quantum terms, you are collapsing the chaos of wandering thought into the order of conscious experience. You are participating in the creation of clarity, moment by moment. 2. Intentional observation, conscious creation. Take any object, an apple, a flame, a stone, and look at it as if you've never seen it before. Not with the dull gaze of habit, but with the eyes of wonder. Ask. What is this? Where does it end and I begin? What if it is aware of being seen? You don't need answers. The power is in the quality of attention. This echoes an ancient Sufi technique, the contemplation of divine signs in the everyday. In this act, you sanctify the mundane. The boundary between observer and observed begins to blur. You re-enter the participatory universe, awake, alive, creative. 3. The inner watcher, observing the observer. Now, turn your gaze inward. Who is observing your thoughts? Who hears the inner voice? Watch the watcher. This is the root of many mystical paths, from the Zen koan to the self-inquiry of Ramana Maharshi. The question, who am I, is not meant to be answered intellectually. It is meant to break the loop of identification with the false self. And when the illusion drops, even for a moment, what remains is pure presence. Awareness itself. God not as idea, but as experience. These practices are not about changing the world. They're about changing the way you see the world. Because as the double-slit experiment shows, how you look changes what you see. Reality isn't fixed. It's responsive. And your awareness is not passive, it's active, creative, sacred. This isn't metaphor. It's the hidden architecture of the cosmos. And you are part of it, intimately, eternally. So the next time you open your eyes, do so not as a bystander, but as a sacred participant in the divine experiment of existence. A beam of light. 2 slits. A screen. And a mystery that shattered the wall between science and spirit. We began this journey in a laboratory, but we end in a place far more intimate, the still center of your own awareness. What the double-slit experiment revealed, quietly, paradoxically, is not just a quirk of subatomic behavior. It whispered something far older, far deeper. That reality is not solid stone, but soft clay. That consciousness does not float above the world, it weaves the world. That God, perhaps, is not hidden in heaven, but is the act of awareness itself, alive in every glance, every breath, every moment of presence. The ancients tried to tell us. The mystics gave us metaphors. And now, physics gives us evidence. So what does this mean for you? It means that in every choice, every intention, every act of mindful observation, you are shaping the world. You are not separate from it. You are the wave and the collapse, the mirror and the light, the eye and the infinite gaze looking through it. You are not waiting for a sign from the divine. You are the divine, watching itself unfold. So live as if your gaze matters, because it does. Speak as if your words shape the world, because they do. And walk this earth not as a stranger, but as a participant in a sacred experiment that is still unfolding with every heartbeat. And perhaps, just perhaps, the next time you look up at the stars and wonder if anyone, or anything, is watching, you'll remember. It is not the stars that are conscious. It is the consciousness that gives rise to stars. And it is watching through your eyes, right now. If this video stirred something deep within you, something ancient and familiar, you're not alone. Reflect on what you've learned. Practice the sacred art of awareness. And if you feel called, share this with another seeker on the path. Because in a universe shaped by observation, even one awakened gaze can ripple into eternity.